Hey everybody, it's Charlie. You guys may have heard about all the deleted scenes that the producers were talking about going into Game of Thrones Season 8, so I'll break them all down. We also have a bunch of new details about the unaired secret pilot episode that they're never allowing to be viewed by public eyes that I'll break down too. I'll just do all the scenes top 10 style like I would do a normal episode. There's a new round of the book giveaway too. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. Starting with number 10, Sir Pounce. The showrunners revealed what they did with Sir Pounce on the TV show. He's still alive in the books right now as of Dance with Dragons. But Dan and Dave revealed that they killed Sir Pounce off screen. So this is their quote. Cersei hated the name Sir Pounce so much she could not allow him to survive. So she came up with her most diabolical execution. Sir Pounce's death was so horrible we couldn't even put it on the air. They say if you buy the super extended, super duper charged Game of Thrones box set that comes out later this year, the death of Sir Pounce will be in there. They go on joking a lot about it, just a super episode devoted to the death of Sir Pounce. Like they just really hated that cat when they were filming those episodes. So that's the main reason why there's no Sir Pounce on the TV show. People just wondering, like where a lot of characters like Ghost, for instance, where did Ghost go? So people are naturally asking about Sir Pounce, and this was their answer. We killed him off screen. I think a lot of people are mistakenly attributing her motives to grief over what happened to Tommen, and the cat being a reminder of what happened to Tommen. But remember how much Cersei hated Margaery with a passion. Margaery Tyrell is the person that gave Sir Pounce to Tommen to sort of win him away from Cersei. Remember, that was a big arc during the books and on the TV show. But moving into the deleted scenes from the unaired pilot, there's actually a lot of Easter eggs for stuff that's happening during Season 8, so they really are paying off a lot of big arcs. But you remember that the original unaired pilot, they claimed, is so bad that they never wanted it to see the light of day. They recast a couple of the actors, like Daenerys and Catelyn Stark were played by different people. They completely changed a lot of scenes and changed a lot of characters' personalities. So 9, after Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon go to the crypts to visit Lyanna's tomb and Robert Baratheon leaves the exotic bird feather, remember the feather that showed up during the Season 8 teaser trailer and during Season 5 when Sansa went down to the crypts at Winterfell after she'd gone back to marry Ramsay Bolton. There's a scene in the unaired pilot after Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon come back up where Cersei goes down, and I'll just read the scene here. A long shot of Cersei in profile wearing a heavy fur over her elegant dress. She stares into one of the burial vaults. The shadows about her dance in the candlelight. Cersei exits the crypts, crosses the courtyard, and walks into the antechamber between the kitchen and the Winterfell Great Hall while the big celebration is happening and the king's arrival is underway. She's getting fixed up before she walks in and sits at the great table, and she looks at a Stark serving girl and says, "A word with a Stark girl." This handmaiden walks up and nods, and Cersei steps forward. Cersei reaches into her sleeve and pulls out the brilliantly colored bird's feather Robert had placed on Lyanna's stone hand. Cersei hands the feather to her handmaiden and says, "Burn this." They probably changed this just so that Cersei wasn't quite as aware of what Robert was doing and leaving their relationship a little bit more implicit. Number 8, when Daenerys is getting married to Khal Drogo, they have a much more consensual relationship from the start. So if you remember by the middle of the season, in the actual version of the episodes that we saw, they had sort of come to terms and Daenerys felt a little more confident. And I think that was largely more to enforce the arc of her adapting to her environment. Like, it starts out really bad, she slowly acclimates through the season, and I think they were just trying to give their relationship a bigger arc than it would have had originally had they started out with a happier marriage. Number 7, when Bran catches Jaime and Cersei together in the Tower at Winterfell, it goes down way differently, and it completely changes the dynamic of Jaime and Cersei's relationship. Before he catches them, Cersei had told Jaime to stop, like she wanted to hit the brakes on what they were doing. Part of the reason I think they changed that is so that later it would make more sense when Jaime is the one who wants to leave Cersei, not the other way around. Because in the original unaired pilot, it seemed like Cersei wasn't really happy with the twincest, like it was a more reluctant relationship for her. Whereas in the final version of the show that we saw, she was 100% Jaime and grew very upset at the idea that she was being taken away. Like the moment that she has with Brienne during Season 4 at the Purple Wedding, like how dare you ever think that Jaime would love you? So it makes more sense for Jaime's arc when he eventually leaves her, because that whole time she had always wanted him. Number 6, the opening scene with the White Walkers goes down very differently. They actually speak to each other at great length. The scene went like this. The crackling is coming from multiple sources now. These are not the noises of mindless predators. This is a language, and whatever is speaking is getting closer. Then it goes on. Will closes his eyes against the icy voices beneath him, muttering silent prayers. The person that created the Dothraki language and the High Valyrian languages for the show also created a separate White Walker language called Skroth. It's right out of the books. They actually do speak to each other in the books. It sounds like ice cracking. The reason why they got rid of that in the final version is just because it made them seem more mysterious and scarier if they did not speak, which is also why the Night King has never spoken and why he'll probably never speak. It'll be interesting to see if they actually do stick to their guns and the Night King does not say anything at all during Season 8. I know a lot of people are wondering if that's going to happen. Number 5, in the unaired pilot, there's a very different version of the Great Hall banquet scene. Jon Snow sits down at one of the tables, one of the faraway tables with Benjen, gets drunk, and they have this comedic scene where he slips and falls into a serving wench and she spills all of her drinks. And it's really funny, and he slinks out of the Great Hall with Ghost behind him. In the final version of events, he was not allowed to sit in the Great Hall because Catelyn felt like he was a bastard and didn't belong there. So it just emphasized his role as feeling like an outsider, which informs his entire arc across the series. The original version of the scene, though, where he gets drunk, is in the books, though. Some of these scenes are book scenes, like the White Walkers talking. So some of the changes do make more narrative sense for the arcs that the characters have had on the TV show, but obviously some of them are for more practical reasons. But then number 4, also at the Great Hall banquet scene, when Ned Stark and Jaime have their gunslinger standoff moment, and Ned tells him that he doesn't like to reveal his skills before a fight. It's just like a sort of badass standoff moment between the two of them. In the original unaired pilot, they continue on back and forth after Ned Stark calls him the Kingslayer. Jaime reminds him how the Mad King killed his father and his brother Rickard Stark and Brandon Stark. So the tense moment just continues on, and then later after Ned Stark walks away, Tyrion drunkenly chimes in and says, "If it came down to it, I'd bet on you, brother," but not much, just sort of making fun of Jaime and acknowledging how badass a fighter Ned Stark actually is. There also was a flashback scene that they filmed of the Mad King killing Brandon Stark and Rickard Stark that they had for the episode. That probably would have appeared when Jaime referenced the moment when he was talking to Ned Stark. There were a couple moments from that they actually included in the very first teaser for Game of Thrones. HBO has since pulled it from the internet, so it's really hard to find, but if you ever remember seeing an original flashback scene, that's what it was from. 3, like I said, there were very different actresses playing Daenerys and Catelyn Stark, and Catelyn Stark's personality was very different in the original version. So originally, Catelyn Stark urged Ned Stark to accept Robert Baratheon's terms to become Hand of the King and take the family down to King's Landing, and accept the betrothal of Sansa to Joffrey so that Sansa could become queen. She really wanted Sansa to become queen. When they reshot it and recast Michelle Fairley in the final version of the episode that we actually saw, Catelyn sort of tells off Robert Baratheon to Ned Stark, calling him a fat man, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with the politics of King's Landing. She tells him to keep the family in the north. Don't go. So she's much more shrewd in the final version of the episode. She also gets the letter from Lysa about Jon Arryn's death, and initially in the unaired pilot, she blames Cersei and the Lannisters, like she thinks the Queen had something to do with his death. In the final version of the episode, she just blames the Lannisters. They probably changed that in the final version of the episode just because there were already so many reasons for you to not like Cersei, like what was happening with Bran, that they didn't want to pile too much on her too quickly. But number 2, also in that original unaired pilot, there's a standoff between Robb Stark and Joffrey really early on, and Joffrey is way more of an asshole right from the start. There's a scene where the Master of Arms is training the Stark children in swordplay and they're fighting with wooden swords in the field. Bran finishes fighting Tommen and Joffrey sort of snuffs at it and says, tired of swatting at Starks with play swords. He suggests they use live steel, and Roderick tells him, beat him with a tourney blade then. Joffrey shrugs and starts to turn away. Come and see me, North Boy, once your balls thaw. Laughter from the Lannister men. Robb loses his temper because he's talking to Robb. I'll cut yours off, you little piece of... Theon seizes Robb's arm to keep him away from Joffrey and says, easy. Joffrey feigns a yawn, turns to Tommen and says, come on, playtime is over, leave the children to their games. This gave him more of a reason to hate Joffrey from the start, and it also tipped their hand as to Joffrey being totally evil from the beginning, whereas the version of the show sort of ramped up slowly, and it was Sansa learning the truth of what Joffrey was really like, because you have the death of Lady in episode 2, and then slowly it's Joffrey getting worse and worse and worse from her perspective. But then number 1, even though this doesn't seem like a big moment, it's actually a really big personality change for Ned Stark. So back when Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon are in the crypts at Winterfell, they're getting ready to walk out. Robert says, don't keep me waiting too long. It's a bloody mess down there, talking about King's Landing. You know what they say, the king shits In the original unaired pilot, Robert walks up the stairs, leaving Ned standing amidst the Stark dead, and Ned Stark finishes the line, "And the hand wipes." What the show did is they gave that line of dialogue to Jaime later in episode 3, and it was used as more of a cutting remark against Ned Stark instead of Ned Stark telling a joke himself, because it just sounds weird that Ned Stark would ever tell a single joke in his life. He does have a sense of humor, like when he and Robert are having that standoff moment, he sort of smiles a little bit. That's Ned Stark. If you heard him start telling a bunch of jokes, you would think that he'd been possessed by something. But let me know in the comments what's your favorite deleted scene, and if there are any other deleted scene videos that you guys want me to do for Game of Thrones, let me know in the comments. There's going to be a lot more of these on the Season 8 Blu-ray when they release that later this year, so of course, whenever that stuff comes, I'll do videos for it, but that'll be after all the regular episodes air. Congratulations to the giveaway winner from my last big Game of Thrones video, Odd Guester. Please email me on the About page of my channel so I can get your contact details. Click here for my big Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 1 preview video, and click here for all my other Game of Thrones Season 8 trailer videos and promos. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.